Sarada Uchiha has finally awakened her Mangekyo Sharingan, and with it, her power level, it has skyrocketed to new heights. But just how strong is she in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex? From dodging lightning speed Chidori to damaging godlike beings, this isn't the same Sarada who we met in the Academy arc of Boruto's anime. This is a warrior capable of one day becoming Hokage. Join me in today's newest Naruto Explained video and the newest installment in the strongest in Naruto series, where we're going to be taking a deep dive into Sarada Uchiha's new power, her showing against monsters like Hidari and Ryu, and how the winds of change are blowing in for the new generation and causing some uncomfortable conversations regarding the balance of power being shifted in terms of the hierarchy of the mighty Uchiha clan. So without further ado, let's get started. So how strong is Sarada Uchiha in her base? Well, it shows that she's already elite. To understand how big of a jump this power is, we need to start with what Sarada could do with her 3-tomo Sharingan state before she even uses Mangekyo. So in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, Sarada is attacked by Hidari, a Shinju clone made up of Sasuke Uchiha's chakra, as well as somebody in possession of Shiba Otsutsuki cells, since he is also made from Code's chakra, Code being someone who scales above Jigen, and also because of Code possessing the Karma seal, this same Hidari is also somebody that benefits from the Otsutsuki essence, as Boruto states. This is a power that comes of the Otsutsuki, since karma in of itself, even a defective karma that Code has, is still Otsutsuki power. Despite being caught off guard, Sarada manages to dodge his Chidori, and then she's able to counter with her own. React, dodge, and counter with her own. This is absolutely huge. Here's why Hidari's Chidori being strong enough to cancel out Boruto's Rasengan is a big deal, and why Sarada dodging it is a big deal. At this point in the story, Boruto was going all out in base. He was desperate not to get captured and eaten. The only thing he didn't use was Rasengan Uzuhiko, but base Boruto is stronger than the same base Code, who Sasuke openly admitted they stood no chance at defeating, even with Boruto attempting to use karma in that flashback by Boruto's own words. One-eyed EMS Sasuke is not a weak character like people state. Yes, Sasuke was able to cut Code's eye. However, we can likely chalk that up to that being an off-guard feat, which means you don't count it. Code is somebody who plays around with people weaker than him, and Sasuke, by his own words, directly said they stood no chance. It goes without saying that one-eyed EMS Sasuke would bully the 4 Boruto Kage into submission, and he would outright demolish the 5 Kage who fought against Madara in the war arc. They'd be begging for Madara to fight them. But this same one-eyed Sasuke was strong enough that if we take him at his words when he spoke to Naruto in Boruto episode 220, that he could have killed Boruto when Momoshiki took over his body, but seeing Momoshiki control Boruto left Sasuke unable to do so. Sasuke is a reliable narrator because it is out of character for Sasuke to lie about someone else's capability and his own capability in a conversation like that. So if you stick with the belief that one-eyed EMS Sasuke is equal or slightly stronger than Sage Mode Hokage Naruto, this being the same Sage Mode Hokage Naruto who was strong enough that Momoshiki did not want to fight Naruto alone, and he went from being ready to kill Code, who at the time still had limiters, to telling Code they needed to team up because he could sense Naruto coming, and was not worried about Shikamaru backing Naruto up because one Rasengan bullet to the face and Shikamaru is dead. However, it wasn't until Momoshiki saw Naruto was unable to fight Boruto while he was controlling his body that Momoshiki was confident enough to kill Naruto. So getting back to Sasuke and how you can scale this with Sarada, for Sasuke to tell Boruto that he and Boruto, who again had attempted to use karma, stood no chance against base Code, as in no karma seal being used, that speaks volumes. And so for Boruto to bully Karma Seal Code, and then for Hidari to cancel out the Rasengan of that same 15-year-old base Boruto, that is a big deal. So by extension, for Sarada to react to dodge, and to counter against someone like Hidari means that her base combat ability via the 3-tomo Sharingan is already relative to him. Relative meaning anywhere from on the low end being slightly weaker to, which means that she's in that same tier as him, to all the way up to being as strong as Hidari. It's a sliding scale. Now, if you're thinking, I know a lot of you guys are, hey, she's got the Sharingan, so of course she dodged that. That's not really a feat. I'm gonna tell you, pump the brakes for a second. So there's this huge misconception that people say where they go, hey, Sharingan gives Uchiha auto dodge for attacks, but this is factually incorrect in the sense that it's not completely true. So Naruto's own manga makes it clear multiple times, the most iconic example being Rock Lee versus Sasuke. Precognition does not matter if your body is not able to physically react. You still need relative speed, reflexes, and strength. It doesn't matter if you see an attack coming that you know it's coming if your body is too slow to keep up. That means Sarada at just 15 has the physical skill to keep up with Hidari, who can fight relative to that base Boruto, though obviously again this is base Boruto without the Rasengan Uzuhiko, but that same base Boruto is really strong. And this is even more impressive when again you realize that Sarada didn't have the Sharingan on at first, was able to react to, cut the Sharingan on, and then dodge and etc. So this gets even crazier when you start factoring in another underrated element for the Uchiha clan in general. So the power of hatred still applies, and then you have Sarada's time skip training and that insane growth. So we have to first talk about why she's gotten so strong, because if you're someone who has consciously or subconsciously placed a cap on Sarada's power due to what I refer to as it being the Super Saiyan syndrome, where there's this tendency for Naruto fans to do the same thing that Dragon Ball fans have done, which is to see a character with the same ability as someone and basically automatically cap their power level to the most iconic usage of it. So for Dragon Ball fans, there was this long tendency to look at Super Saiyan 1 and go, oh, they're as strong as Goku when he fought against Super Saiyan Frieza on Namek. Or in Naruto, they go, hey, Sasuke has Mangekyo, so he must be as strong as Itachi. Naruto has Sage Mode, so he's as strong as he was when he fought against Pain. And with Sarada, there was this tendency that, hey, she must be just as strong as Sasuke when he got the Mangekyo. If that is your line of thinking, you are sorely mistaken. The stronger the base, the stronger the power-up or the transformation. 12-year-old Sarada, I'm not going to go over all of her scaling because I've already done that in a video for how strong Sarada was at the end of Boruto Part 1, but 12-year-old Sarada, if you drop her in Naruto Shippuden's anime, is a lot stronger than a decent number of the Edo Tensei Kage who Kabuto reanimated during the 4th Great Ninja War. That does not mean that she beats all of them in one-on-one battles, because in Naruto, battles are not strictly decided off of power. The strongest does not always win, but in terms of simple linear scaling, she does go a lot higher than a lot of fans give credit for. Here's the reason why. First, she trained for 3 years off screen. Time skips, that's gonna happen. Off-screen power-ups happen. From My Hero Academia to Naruto to Dragon Ball, etc. She spent that 3 years sharpening her skills without ever knowing that Naruto was alive. Her hatred towards Kawaki, who erased Boruto's life, stole his life, and was lying about it, and he sealed away her Hokage, who she thinks is dead. All of that became fuel. That is very important to factor in for any power assessment for Sarada, because Tobirama, a Uchiha expert, that's how big of a hater he was, he told us that the Uchiha, they grow more powerful the stronger their emotions are, and that makes sense given that the Sharingan is a yin release Kekkei Genkai. Yin chakra is directly linked to your emotions, and this is especially true when it comes to the emotion of hate. And for Sarada, that hate for Kawaki runs deep, a lot deeper than I think a lot of you guys have factored in when it comes to her power. In Sarada's case, this isn't hatred that's cold. It was wrapped in her love for Boruto, her desire to protect Konoha as someone who aspires to be Hokage, and most importantly, her love for Naruto, which we'll touch on in a moment. So we get this outright stated how hard Sarada was trying to convince people that Kawaki was lying. Chapter 5 reveals she was handing out baby photos of Boruto being held by Naruto and Hinata. She was constantly getting into fights with Shikamaru and other villagers throughout the time skip. However, as Sarada trained, she was stewed in emotion, and she prepared for a future where she was thinking she was going to have to stop Kawaki. Not saying she could have stopped him, but that was her goal. All of that, like it did for Sasuke after Itachi's death, it became an emotional fire that would eventually be paid off when we see her Mangekyo Sharingan fully awaken in this new chapter. So for Sarada, this gets to be an even bigger boost when you realize it wasn't just Boruto who she lost, someone who the story is strongly hinting at that she has a deep love for that runs a lot deeper than just friendship, but also Naruto Uzumaki, the 7th Hokage. The person who she literally tells Kawaki in Boruto episode 205 that she had moments where she was jealous of Boruto and she wished that Naruto was her father, and the person who we know is the guy who changed her life to the point that she decided, I want to be Hokage one day. You could make the argument that Naruto is as equally as important to her as her own parents are. So imagine losing your idol who you thought for 3 years was dead, your father, and the boy who you're potentially in love with, all gone because of the actions of one person. That's a lot of hatred, and that's going to serve as a monster amp and fuel for desire to grow stronger. Now, with the Mangekyo Sharingan, you also have a canonical leap in power. So what does unlocking the Mangekyo Sharingan actually mean in terms of power? So we can use Sasuke's growth as a direct example. Before Mangekyo Sharingan, Sasuke, who had the curse mark as well as Orochimaru absorbed, he was around the level of Kakuzu and Deidara, meaning he's at that tough Akatsuki level, but he's not quite at the level of monsters like the 4th Raikage. After awakening Mangekyo Sharingan, we see him in the 5 Kage Summit arc pushing Raikage A in combat, easily overpowering Danzo to the point Danzo had to spam Izanagi just to stay in the fight with Sasuke, and surviving multiple battles against Kage level shinobi during the events of the 5 Kage Summit. That is at a minimum a 2 to a 2.5 tier leap in power. That same power leap, it applies to Sarada, and considering her base is already relative to someone who could trade blows with Boruto and directly cancel out his Rasengan with his own Chidori attack, this 2 leap in power puts Mangekyo Sharingan Sarada easily in the realm of power where we saw her Mangekyo power was able to one-shot Ryu with the full extent of the attack. Now, there's also something else we have to take into consideration that I don't think enough people have factored in. There's a reason why Sasuke is written in the chapter saying he knew, without even seeing Sarada's Mangekyo ability, he knew very easily it was about to be immensely powerful. It wasn't just because of how strong she was. It wasn't just a proud papa moment. Sasuke saw the pattern in her eyes. Sarada has a straight pattern Mangekyo Sharingan, and that's a really big deal because straight pattern Mangekyo Sharingan are directly confirmed to be rarer and more powerful if you read Naruto's manga closely. So there are 2 different types of Mangekyo Sharingan. You have the spiral patterns like Itachi and Obito, and you have the straight ones. So the straight ones are referred to as Chokotomo Mangekyo Sharingan, and they are symmetric in respect to the radial axis, whereas the spiral ones, they're not. Triangles in Sarada's Mangekyo Sharingan, if you look very closely, they're all pointed straight. I've seen people not understand what I mean by this in the chapter review, so I'm gonna be very quick here. The eyeball is round, so any pattern that you have by default is gonna be in a circular pattern, just due to how an eye is shaped. Like Sasuke's EMS, it has all those red and black ovals in his eye. They're in that circular pattern, but the ovals themselves, when you look at them, they have straight edges that point in a straight direction. It's just as Sarada's triangles are pointing in a straight direction, whereas someone like Obito's Mangekyo Sharingan, if you look at them, all of the edges, they curve. Madara in Naruto's manga multiple times attributes the straight pattern Mangekyo Sharingan to why Sasuke's strength and skill are so formidable, enough to the point he was considering stealing Sasuke's eyes. And when Naruto and Sasuke got their 6-pass power-ups, Madara was more spooked of Sasuke than Naruto, despite Naruto being stronger than Sasuke, with Madara again noting Sasuke's Mangekyo Sharingan pattern being a straight pattern like his own. So that is how Sasuke knew Sarada's power was going to be broken, which brings me to this. The Sarada versus Ryu and the Shinju scaling. It doesn't stop just there. So when Sarada lands that Chidori stream on Hidari in chapter 12, causing visible pain on him when he was on guard attempting to capture her and hurling him towards Boruto's Rasengan Uzumaki, he was on guard desperately trying to restrain her, and she still overpowered him. This shows she can physically contend with and overpower beings that are made up of her father's chakra. But the most underrated scaling comes from her battle with Ryu. In chapter 18, 19, 20, somewhere in that range, Ryu fights against Sage Mode Mitsuki and 3-Tomo Sharingan Sarada, and he is forced to use the Iron Sand to avoid taking full attacks. Multiple times they talk about how the attacks, they don't land all the way. They weren't deep enough. It's because Ryu saw the attacks and said, I can't take the full extent, and broke his body up. Yet even so, when we see Sarada, her attack still draws blood from him, meaning that they were dangerously effective. For complete context, again, Code was completely helpless against Ryu. When Ryu had Code in a chokehold, Code was begging to be let go, and he could not escape. Had Code been physically strong enough, he would have broken out of the chokehold, but he couldn't do so because he was physically unable to do it. Jura, the leader of the Shinju, he even told Ryu the next time he saw Code, he can kill him, implying that Ryu is far stronger than Koma Seal Code. Jura, much like Sasuke, does not sugarcoat things, and Sarada made Ryu bleed, and then she one-shot him after unlocking the Mangekyo Sharingan. This isn't just scaling to Code, this is surpassing her own post-Rinnegan Sasuke in power, and surpassing Code without limiters. There's this notion to downplay Code without limiters, but we have multiple statements saying that he is stronger than Jigen from reliable narrators. Damon can directly measure power levels, and it is confirmed afterwards that after he whooped Code's ass, yeah, you're stronger than Jigen. And Amato is the one who placed the limiters on Code, and Amato himself confirmed that Code is stronger than Jigen. Jigen himself wanted cyborgs like Code to be destroyed, specifically because they surpassed him in combat power. Jubiamp Jigen, it does not matter, and I'm going to explain to you why. Ignoring Jigen is directly revealed to have been juicing up on the Ten Tails chakra prior to this. That is a big thing to leave out. When Sasuke finds him in that Ten Tails dimension in chapter 35 of Boruto Part 1, he flat out says that he needs to take a little bit more again, meaning that he's been going there to absorb chakra from the Ten Tails more than once. But Amato has been shown throughout Boruto Part 1, making clear distinctions between Ishiki and Jigen for power. Yet Amato makes no distinction between Jubiamp Jigen and Jigen before absorbing the chakra, likely because since at this point Jigen is implied to have been taking chakra from the Ten Tails routinely before this. Whenever Konoha was ever speaking about Jigen, it was always with the reference of the Jigen who beat Naruto and Sasuke in a combined 5 hits in volume 10 of Boruto's manga, because that's the only frame of reference they have. The same with Ishiki. They only have reference to Ishiki being in a dying body. The scaling lines up. The problem is that a lot of people just don't want to accept that Code's character has been used as a measuring stick in terms of power, and that Jigen levels of power have now become what Super Saiyan was in Dragon Ball. Something very formidable in the past, but now it's just a measuring stick to test strength before fights get even more insane. When you add all of this up, the base strength to match Hidari, the emotion-driven Mangekyo Sharingan amp, and the ability to wound, and the Mangekyo Sharingan easily able to defeat a Shinju who defeated Code, it's not a stretch to say that Sarada is every bit the monster that Naruto and Sasuke predicted that Boruto and Sarada would be at various points in Boruto's first part of the story, because the progress, it is undeniable. Some might even say she's in the process of having gone from being undesirable by some fans in the franchise to quickly becoming undeniable. Sarada Uchiha isn't just the heir of two powerhouses. She is a prodigy in her own right. She is a rising god-tier shinobi with the heart of a Hokage. That might mean if you're the fan of certain Uchiha clan members, you might be feeling a little salty right now, but here's some fries. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, fireball jutsu the subscribe button, and click here to check out more videos from the Strongest in Naruto playlist, and leave your suggestion for who you want me to cover next from either Naruto or Boruto. I'm open to both.